things just always felt hard.
Welcome to The Outsider Within, a space for honest conversations about the experience of being different. In this conversation, Chloe Wigan shares how late neurodivergent diagnosis helped her make sense of a life that had often felt harder than it seemed for others, and how that understanding began to reshape the way she supports both herself and others. Let's begin. Today, I'm joined by Chloe Wigan, a multi-award winning certified life coach who supports her community with self-coaching and reflection. She has been a coach for 11 years and has created a year of coaching and reflection for accessible coaching support and the seasonal reflection series to create space for people to reflect each season. Welcome, Chloe. It's really lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Lucinda. I'm so excited to be here with you and get to have this chat.
I know music is so important for you and it's
Mhm.
been an enormous part of your life. So, has it always been that way or is that just a more recent thing?
I think always, ever since I can actually remember, like my earliest music memories, when we lived in my first house that I lived in with my family, I can still like see the stereo that we used to have and the lounge room, and it had a fire in it, and that's where my dad used to play his CDs. So I feel like the earliest I can possibly think back, I feel like I have musical memories, and I'm not sure how old I would be because it's a bit hard to like work it out, but I definitely was quite a young child. And music's just always been a huge part of my life. I actually attribute music to my relationship with my partner. That's how we actually connected and got together, and we're still together 16 years later. And there's probably not a day goes by that I don't listen to music. It'd probably be very rare to have a music free day. Maybe if I was really sick, but even then, I'd probably put some music on.
Yeah, it's so big, isn't it? Just the role it plays. Do you find you gravitate towards particular sounds or artists maybe at different times, or is there just sort of one sound you go for?
I think I could listen to any kind of music, depending on how I was feeling. And also, the big difference for me is sometimes like how I want to feel. So sometimes, like, if I'm not feeling calm and I want to feel calm, there'll be different music. Or if I'm feeling a little bit too like unmotivated, there'll be different music, a lot more upbeat to sort of get me into the zone of doing what I need to do. I love music. I don't think there's a like a genre that I wouldn't listen to or don't like. I'm always like open to listening to things. I actually had my dad and his friend had a radio show when I was a teenager. And I used to go along because I had to be picked up from dance class. And I would go along to the radio show, and I actually learned how to do the radio system that they were using. But I started being on the show and doing my own little segments of music. And it was so interesting because I used to just choose such different things every single time I got to feature a song. There wasn't like a clear like genre that I liked. I would go in any direction I felt like.
That's fantastic. I love that openness to all the different sounds that you have. Yeah, and really hearing the draw to different music for different purposes. So
Mhm.
it sounded like you said like some that are matching where you feel and others to shift how you feel.
Mhm. And it's like music is a comfort as well. So there's also those artists and songs that are just like always probably going to be in rotation, or music you could listen to at any time.
Mm. Hearing you there. And live music is something I know we both love.
Mhm. Totally. We've talked about this before, but the hardest part of the pandemic for me and my partner was not having live music experiences. And because of where we lived in Melbourne, like we essentially didn't see live music for 2 years. And going back to that, I was like, I didn't realize how much I actually needed those experiences. And we've nearly always got live music lined up on the calendar. And when we don't, I think we get a little bit like I guess, itchy or something for it. Like we kind of know we need to put the next one in the calendar so we have it to look forward to.
I so hear you, and I'm sure many people watching this too feel that same way. Just yeah, the importance of it, the role it's playing, the significance in daily life, and without
Mhm.
it, the gaps you feel. So just shifting the conversation slightly, looking back, how has being neurodivergent shaped the work that you do now?
Mhm. I actually, looking back now in this moment, I think it might be the actual like core reason that I was drawn to the work I do. And I think, I don't know, like growing up, I feel like things were always really hard for me. Like I always felt like, even as a child, just things just felt hard. Even though I presented very well and I did well at school and I did all the right things just always felt hard. And I think this is actually what drew me to personal development, like at quite a young age, because I sort of needed help to help myself feel good and I needed help to do the things I wanted to do. And I personally remember reading my first personal development book when I was 12. Now, my parents say that I was younger and I was in primary school, but I don't actually remember that. So I say it's when I was 12 because that's the one I remember. And I was really curious about like how you could support yourself a little more. Like, how could you do the things you wanted to do? Or, I had goals, but like I sort of needed help to sort of get there. So
Mm.
ever since I was quite young, I had that interest in like human behavior, in psychology. I then went and pursued a Bachelor of Psychological Science because of this interest. And it was actually during that time that I also did my life coach training. I did that at the very end of my degree. And I didn't really connect those dots in the moment. But now looking back, I can kind of see how I was drawn to personal development. And it was actually my doctor who was the person that identified neurodivergence in me in the first place, who actually pointed out that a lot of people who are neurodivergent are quite drawn to this kind of work, to positive psychology, to coaching, and to sort of self help industries. So that was sort of the seed that made me sort of think, oh, like I can actually see how that's played out in my life.
Interesting. And just to clarify, you were diagnosed late. You weren't diagnosed as a child.
Yes, I was a coming out of the pandemic diagnosed. So my story is a little bit different than the ones that I have heard from other people, which is as neurodivergence got spoken about a little more, a lot of people started seeing themselves in those traits and started wondering and questioning, oh, perhaps that's me as well. And that wasn't my experience at all. It actually was a doctor that I used to have who I had been with for a really long time. I think it was about 7 years. And she was the one who first said to me, I think you might be neurodivergent. And my first response to her was like, oh, no, I can't be. Like, I've studied that. I took extra electives in my degree to understand neurodivergence because of my partner. And I thought that I knew what it looks like. So I kind of thought I can't possibly be one of these people. But I said to her, I'm willing to explore this with you. So I did things like the Diva assessment and scored really low and went back to her. We had this sort of process over a few months of sort of navigating this together and her sort of educating me a little bit on my particular presentation of neurodivergence that led me to attempt to get diagnosed. And what actually happened was my first experience was incredibly bad.
Mm.
And it was I actually got confused in the assessment. And I had to ask, like, is this an ADHD specific assessment? Because from what I knew about it, I hadn't even been asked any questions half an hour into the assessment about that. And I thought maybe they'd got what we were doing wrong. So I went back to the doctor and she was understandably quite angry about the situation and still encouraged me to pursue it. And then over the course of that year, and when I eventually did get diagnosed, I sort of kind of developed my own understanding of, the particular presentation I have, and that I was very high masking, and that I have that very particular sort of overcompensation presentation where I'm very organized, a bit of a perfectionist, and I hadn't really seen anyone talk about that presentation before. So I just didn't know it was possible or it existed. So it was a bit of a relief actually when I got diagnosed, just because, as I said, things always felt hard for me in a way that I couldn't really explain. And like on paper, things look really fine in my life. Like I've done normal things and things like that, but things are always hard. And I've always felt like a very extra sensitive person as well.
That's so interesting. And I think, yeah, the experience, the expectation of what neurodivergent looks like, whether it be ADHD, autism, AUDHD.
Mhm.
I mean, there's so many different ways it presents, but people just expect it's usually the boy who's bouncing off the
Mhm.
walls, who's loud, and it's all that impulsive behavior. But I think that's how most of us go, under the radar and get missed because
Mhm.
we're not presenting that way. And I've shared in other videos that for me, a big part of my presentation is internal. It's my
Yeah.
brain is going so fast. It's ridiculous. And that's where my ADHD really, I think, is the most evident. But people don't see that, people don't know that.
I so
So
relate to that, Lucinda. Like, and that's exactly what happened to me on the outside. I don't appear very hyperactive, but my mind is so fast and does not stop. And I actually didn't include this before, but the reason the doctor actually put this together was I was having trouble sleeping, and everyone in my life knows I've been like that since I was a child, and I would go through phases. I just couldn't. I always used to say I can't shut my mind off to go to sleep. And I was going through a real bad bout, probably the worst I've ever had as an adult, of about a year and a half of not sleeping very well. And for the first time in my life, I got put on sleeping tablets and things like that, but they didn't actually work. And my doctor, well, that was the moment that she said to me, I actually think that this is something else because you should be able to take a sedative and go to sleep. And we tried several. And that's when this all began, all because of that idea of me not being able to sleep. And mostly the reason I can't sleep is I can't shut my mind off.
yeah, I 100% relate to that. That's exactly my problem with sleep as well. Even resting time,
Hmm.
downtime is like the brain's still going a million miles an hour, or quiet time gives me that space for all the ideas to come through.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Happens to me too.
yeah, and I think that whole thing, the difficulty with sleep is so prevalent with the neurodivergent community.
Hmm.
And maybe, yeah, we really need to talk more about all that kind of stuff, don't we?
For sure. And it's one of those things that I don't think, like the way you help a neurotypical person go to sleep, none of those things were working for me. I was doing all the things, but some of the things that we're told not to do, like put a show on your iPad and watch a show to go to sleep, those things work a bit more effective for me than the things that we're so-called like meant to do. I'm a big reader before sleep as well. So, like, it was one of those things that's like, you kind of, I guess you sort of, and this is like a big lesson for me in being neurodivergent, is just like, I need to find what works for me. And it's one of my biggest lessons. And it sort of doesn't matter what's meant to work, it's what does actually work.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think, yeah, that's been my big learning as well. It doesn't matter what, everybody else says you need to do, it's what actually works. And I think, I know with the work that you do, you help people in that way as well, working out what works for them.
Mhm.
There's no one size fits all.
And what's so interesting about that is like I've done that since the beginning of my time being a coach without sort of knowing that like that's what I do for myself. Like it until it was pointed out to me, I actually didn't realize. I just showed up and did my job the best I could. And until people kept repeating the same things back to me, did I realize, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. So that's what I do.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think that whole experience of being different and having to find your own way in the world means when you're working with people, you're seeing them as an individual, not just
Mm.
you need to fit this mold and do, which makes
Definitely.
such a
And things
difference.
aren't prescriptive. And that's what I think I really liked about coaching and positive psychology. It was actually sort of about that idea of like finding what does work and like prompting someone else to actually come up with their own ideas rather than being like, this is what you should do.
Mm.
Because I know that's never worked for me.
If it's okay, just to explain what positive psychology means, because I don't know if everybody knows that term.
Oh, you're taking me back. I don't remember the official term, but like to me, when I went to university, we had psychology as like an umbrella term for all these different things. Positive psychology is a little bit, the most simplest way I've always explained it is it's about looking forward and moving forward. So in psychology, when you're dealing with things like mental health issues and things like that, that's about looking in the past and sort of trying to like, make not make those things okay, but sort of like deal with things that have happened in the past. Where positive psychology is actually when you're looking towards the future, like where do I want to go? What do I want to achieve? What do I want to do? How do I want to feel? And I was always drawn to that element. I've always been interested in all of psychology, but that element is the one that like got me super excited.
And that makes a lot of sense why the coaching is something that you've, you know, sort of shifted towards or pivoted to, because that's the way we do it too, isn't it?
Exactly. And like motivational interviewing is a big part of positive psychology, which is a part of coaching as well. And I was actually in a positive psychology lecture when I learned about coaching, and I just like sort of lit up because I was like, this is what I've always wanted to do. And I remember asking, like, how can that be my job? And they were like, oh, it's not a job, it's a skill. And I was kind of like, but we just spent like a long time learning about how powerful it was. Like, I want this to be my job. And this was before I found the coach training that I did as well.
Mm.
And I thought it was just really interesting. It's just another little dot and another little spark there that sort of led to me doing the work I do now.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love too when you can look back and you can see like the
Mhm.
stepping stones through life that got you to this amazing place that you're at. Um,
Definitely. And you don't know that when you're experiencing those things. You're just sort of like, this feels like the next step. But when you look back, you can sort of see it's formed a path.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Are there accommodations that have made a real difference for you?
Yes, this is probably like, this is the thing at the personal moment. Like,
Mm.
personally, I'm exploring this the most is like, what actual accommodations do I need in life and in my work? Not just to be okay, but to actually sort of thrive. Um, and I think it comes down to this one thing, and it is just exploring what do I actually need? And in regards to like, I am trying to make sure that I set up my business and my work in a way that is neuroaffirming and supportive for me. And it essentially always comes back to that question in both life and work, though. Just say I have a really big event on a weekend, like I actively need to think about, well, what do I actually need in order to be able to do that? In order to support myself afterwards, it's kind of like my kind of anchoring question for accommodations. And I think if I sort of think about it, I reckon my main accommodation for myself is giving myself the space I need, and I need a lot of space and I need a lot of processing time. And I can basically do anything I want to do. I can do things that are really hard, but I also can overexert myself if I stay in that sort of zone for too long. So I really know I need to build in buffer time. I need decompression time. And I also can't have a lot of things that require me to be on the same day or even on the same week. And my learning at the moment is sort of being okay with that and sort of, I guess, supporting myself not to just say yes and put things on when I already know often the time if I do put something on, I'm like, I'm going to regret that. And I'm trying really hard to not do that at the moment. It's one of my big learnings. So this is like one of my most recent examples that comes to me is I did like this big 2 hour session last month, and I've done a few of these, and each time I've sort of worked out a little bit more like, what do I actually need to be able to do this? And to also do it in a way that supports me, because I can do the session and show up, but I also could have a really bad aftermath because of that. So I guess the thing that I learned from the last one was I need the day at home beforehand. And that is a preparation day. And I can't be on in any way because I'm sort of like already mentally preparing myself for what I'm going to need to do. And this is a silly one, but my partner always makes me breakfast. He's a chef. So on days like this, when I have something on, I really struggle with executive function when it comes to things like eating and cooking. So he always makes like breakfast for me that I literally just like put in the toasted sandwich maker or do something really quick too. And like I do the session on the day. And then after the session, I know that I need decompression time. So normally I have nothing scheduled. And I also give myself a recovery day after the call. The next step to this is I've realized that the week after the call needs to have not a lot of exertion on, and not a lot of pressure. I can do a lot, but when there's pressure, I find it really hard. One of the things we actually tried last time was my partner really wanted to see the movie Project Hail Mary the weekend it came out. And I kind of was like, I don't know if this is going to be supportive for me given our weekend and what we have on, but I'm willing to try. And so we went to the cinemas like the night or after the call, and we went out for dinner, and actually it was really supportive for me, and it's one of those things I've sort of tucked away because I know actually going to the cinema and going to the movies is a very relaxing thing for me. I really regulate there. I love being in the dark, which is such a weird thing to say,
No.
and having that movie to sort of just focus on and relax was really good. And then we went out for dinner, which was really nice because it allowed me to sort of debrief the call a little bit and sort of have that sort of processing time. So that's actually something I'm like, I wouldn't mind replicating that again as a way to support myself after a call. But that's just sort of like, I know I always want to hear more personal examples of accommodations. So that's just a recent one from something that I've done in my work, because I'm always seeking out these as well, just to get ideas on what I can try, because it's very hard to come up with, even when you're trying to explore accommodations, it can be really hard to know, well, what do I actually do? And my best like suggestion is to just experiment and take note of what works. And over time, you sort of do build in your own little, I guess, manual of accommodations that's supportive for you. And I guess it's always an ongoing manual as well.
Yeah, and I get that's something was picking up on. It's really like a work in progress all the time
Yeah.
that you're developing as you go through things and notice whether they positively or negatively, not that they're really the right terms, but
Hmm.
the impact that they have on you and whether they're supporting or not.
And I guess things are different at different times too. And that's why I really like that anchoring question around, like, what do I need? Because what you might need at a different point might be different than another point. So at another point, I might have been like, going to the cinema is not a good idea. I just need to be at home and lie on the couch. But in that situation, it actually kind of felt like it would be a nice thing to do. And it was. So I guess it's that idea of also being adaptable and sort of experimenting and working out what does really work.
Yeah, I love that. So no rigidity, just
Yeah.
see what feels right in the moment. And I love that question, what do I need?
It's probably one of my favorite coaching questions, but it's a question that I ask myself probably on a daily basis. And I know that it can feel a little bit simple, like, what do I need? But I find it very supportive. And the little second part I have for that question is, what version of that is possible? Because sometimes what we need, we can't actually give ourselves because of our commitments and the things we have on and all kinds of things. And I like that second part because it makes me realize, well, I might not be able to do the full version of what I need, but maybe a tiny version of that is enough. And it's what I can do.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And also, the personal examples. I know, like you are, I need sometimes that sort of springboard to
Hmm.
think because I don't know, you kind of get stuck doing what you do and you don't know what you
Yeah.
don't know. And these sorts of conversations I find really helpful for broadening the options or possibilities.
I love that
So,
you mentioned the word possibilities because sometimes hearing people's ideas, you go, I didn't even know that was an option. And one of my ones is like, I actually have started taking off 1 week a season a year that's called a breather week. And the idea is that week does not have a schedule in it, at least the work days. And like I have nothing on. And I even find having good things in my calendar still feels like almost I'm holding those things and there feels like there's pressure around them. So I integrated these to sort of help me stop burning out, basically, because I always used to burn out a lot.
mm,
And I didn't even know it was possible to take a week like that. And I didn't even know that was an option until I heard someone say, oh, they're taking a week off work with like nothing on. And my brain just went, oh, like, are you allowed to do that? Like, you're not
yeah,
on a holiday. And it's funny that I say that because I work for myself. So I have a lot of control over my schedule. And yet I was still trying to show up in a way that I think like I should be showing up. And that's been a really big one, like giving myself permission to do those things. Honestly, it feels very indulgent to even say I take that week off once a season. And the reason I actually share it is because I just hope that someone else gives themselves that permission to do whatever their version is. So, like, even my partner, who has a very different schedule than me in work life, we're trying to experiment with just doing 1 day a month for him. That's like a nothing day that he has nothing on, that he can do whatever he wants. He can be at home and do whatever he needs. So it's just like about sort of like working out those things and doing the version that's possible in your life. I'm not sure if this is always going to be possible for me to do, but while it is, I'm definitely going to try to make them happen.
yeah, I love that. It's such a great space giving thing. And I really hear what you're saying with the sense of pressure, even if it's something good.
Hmm.
If something's in the calendar, it's like, oh my goodness, I've got to, like, I have to do whatever. And I think for me, that feels like it's another layer of performing when
Yeah.
perhaps I'm not up for it. Um,
And I've
yeah.
noticed that when I don't do that, I just burn out anyway and need to take time off from that reason, or I can't work as much. So at the end of the day, it actually has had a really positive impact. And I say this, being too scared to say this out loud in case I've like jinxed the situation. But since I've integrated these breather weeks, I haven't had a bad burnout experience. And I think that's just really interesting to note. I wasn't expecting it to have this result, But so far, just integrating those. So once a season's like every 3 months has just been really supportive, just so I can not be off for a week and not have that pressure that I probably put on myself and the way that I hold things that I do have on. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how they unfold.
I love that. I love that collection of data, so to speak, of
Mm,
so far that's showing, there's less burnout. There's, like you don't need to take time out because you're worn out.
mhm.
It's almost like the preventative.
Yeah.
So powerful.
And I'm interested to see what other preventatives I can come up for other aspects of my life as well.
Definitely. Oh, so curious and to keep us informed. It's
I
wonderful.
definitely will.
Thank you. How does self-coaching support you as a neurodivergent person?
Okay, so I reckon this is something that I've probably always done. I just didn't know I was doing it until I learned about coaching and specifically about self-coaching because I was like, oh, is that not what everyone is doing? Like, how do you get yourself to do anything? And I guess with hindsight, knowing like when you're a neurodivergent person, we're living in worlds that aren't really set up or designed to support us at all. And I guess it's kind of like because of that, there is this element of like, I feel like supporting yourself is essential because we're the only ones that are sort of going to do that. So I actually think, off the top of my head, for me, the ways that come to mind on how this supports me is kind of what I said before. It helps me to work out what I'm needing and actually give that to myself. Self coaching also helps me to sort of do the things that I want to do and also the things I need to do potentially that I don't want to do as well. And like that element we've spoken about, I feel like it really supports me to work out doing things in a way that works for me. And it's just like that little just like those little moments. I self-coach a lot throughout the day, and it's not sort of an intentional practice of like I'm self-coaching now. It's sort of just the way I hold and support myself, and it's also the questions I ask myself. So I've always been a big question asker of myself, and I've already shared some in this call today, but I'm constantly always asking myself questions, and that in itself is essentially self-coaching.
Interesting. Interesting. And I think, yeah, asking those questions and being aware, being really
Mhm.
present in your body, in your experience of day-to-day life, work,
Mhm.
that's an incredible skill.
And it's one that I think is really needed because, at least my personal experience of neurodivergence is I can actually be very disconnected from what's going on in my body. I have experiences with chronic pain, and I feel like that creates sometimes a bit of a disassociation between listening to your body and actually paying attention to it. So I always like that, even no matter what question I ask, it sort of centers me and sort of grounds me back into the present moment, no matter what the question is, and actually just helps me check in. And sometimes I realize, oh, I've got like an ailment or something I didn't realize, or I've sort of been sitting in a way that I've like made myself uncomfortable and now I'm sore. So it's kind of like even interesting, just the act of taking a moment to pause and ask a question can just be supportive in itself, just to check in.
I'm curious from a very personal point of view.
Hmm.
I I didn't notice I did this, but very early on when I got together with my husband, he would point out that I was sitting there in the dark on the computer, still working, having not eaten, drunk, gotten up, gone to the toilet,
Hmm.
moved for like 6 hours or 8 hours or 10 hours, whatever. How, when you're kind of in that hyperfocus mode, that you remember to pull back out and check in? Is there any tips you have on that?
I feel like you must have been a fly on my wall yesterday, Lucinda, because this happened to me yesterday. I was doing some writing, and 3 hours later, I realized I need to go to the bathroom. I need to drink something. I was so hungry, but I had just sort of shut all that off. And I guess for me, my biggest thing that's helped with this is to not work for like not give myself open space to work. And that sounds really weird, but I do things like I start the washing machine that goes for 1 hour and then it will go off and it prompts me, oh, it's been 1 hour. I'll go get up and put that on. And integrating sort of things where like little reminders pop up because it's like, you've done an hour and a half now. It's a little bit of a break time. So for me, I guess it's more like trying to make sure I don't give myself too much time and space to get into a task. As much as I was very productive yesterday and I reckon I wrote 7 or 8 pages of words and did all these amazing things. I'm sort of at the phase now where I'm like, I kind of don't want to do that anymore because of the detriment it has on myself. So my biggest thing is just like not like creating almost containers of time that I'm willing to let myself go for, like even like an hour and a half. I don't like the Pomodoro technique personally because to me it's too short.
Mm.
So like I get into the flow and then I have to stop again. And then I get into the flow and stop. So I've kind of given myself a little bit of bigger ones, but then I also do a bit of a bigger break. And a lot of the time, the break might be, housework, like putting the washing out and things like that. But it does help me stop and it does help me sort of check in and go, oh, I have a lot of needs that I've been ignoring that I can take care of now.
That's fantastic. That's gold. And I think for me, it's the opposite of what I do. I try to clear space so I can focus and
Mm,
get something done. And
yeah.
that's where I'll get lost completely.
Hmm. I totally
Um,
get that.
yeah, I actually have a little timer that I got, which I use quite a bit,
I
with
love that.
different times on it. So you could just set that. And I tend to use it more so if I've got to leave or I've got an appointment or
Yeah.
a client, then I can set it so I don't get lost and forget that
Hmm.
I'm meant to be
I
somewhere.
do the same. And you've just reminded me, one of the main things I actually do is I play an album of music. And I might not notice the music as I'm working and as I'm doing things, but as soon as it switches off that album and goes into like playlist radio, I notice and I stop and I'm like, that's not part of that album. And it also does remind me, oh, that album goes for an hour. Like I've been doing this for an hour and helps me to shift gears as well.
That's gold. Because I do the same thing. Like I'll play certain playlists, and then all of a sudden this other music, and I'm like, I had that, but like it just pulls you out and makes you aware.
Yeah.
Um, that's really beautiful. I'm gonna have to try these.
And it's almost like I almost get annoyed, like, what is this tune that wasn't meant to be on?
Yeah, I'm not meant to be hearing that.
Yeah, it is a bit of a pattern interrupter for me for sure. And I do
Mm,
that as well to transition. So if I'm transitioning between different roles or I've been working and now I'm in house mode, we use music in our house to help us do everything and like to do a lot of the boring chores that I don't know how people do without music, like vacuuming and stuff like that. But I've always
yes.
switched gears. So if I'm listening to like a certain type of music, I don't bring that into the next transition. I like to switch to something different just for me
Mm.
to feel like this is now a different activity we're doing.
That makes sense. I know when I was teaching, that would be what I would do. We'd sing a different song or put some different music on and just
Mhm.
a whole different sort of mindset with that music and associating it to this is our song
Definitely.
for like packing up or whatever.
We
Yeah.
have Lainey Wilson, who's an American country artist, has brought out what I call the ADHD anthem, and she only just released it. It's called Can't Sit Still.
Hmm.
And we saw her perform this live at a concert in February this year. And the
Yeah.
moment we heard it, it's been stuck in our heads. And it just got released recently. And that's been our current song of you've got to do something you don't want to do. We put that song on because it's got quite a good beat. And also, it's sort of, when music just scratches your brain right in the way that you need it. That's
Hmm.
been our song at the moment. Like, we've got to do something we don't want to do, put the song on, and we repeat it. And I'm really glad it's out now because we were
Yeah.
trying to, like, every time we were doing it previously, we had to find like Instagram videos of people taking it live. So now that it's out, we just can put it up and play it, which is good.
I'm gonna have to go and listen. On songs, is there a
Mhm.
song that's really made you feel seen or understood? A song you'd like to share today?
I have shared this with you that this is probably this would be the hardest question to possibly ask someone like me ever.
In the next part of this conversation, Chloe shares the song that helped her feel seen during her diagnosis journey, and we explore what it means to keep trying, even when that effort is invisible to others. I'll see you there.